All right, afternoon if you're watching this live, or good, happy whatever time it is if you're not. I am Sean, Librarian Writer Geek, at Librarian Writer Geek on Twitch and YouTube, as well as over on Blue Sky. Otherwise, go to my website where you can find links to these things and some other stuff I've put out. All right, so it's Sunday, and I'm once again feeling like doing another look at a tabletop RPG that I because I feel like it, that I'm kind of interested in, that I'm kind of vibing with at the moment, or at least a little bit. Uh, up for that, yeah, don't really want to get into any current events and stuff because I kind of vented about all that on Friday, and it's been like 2 days, so nothing really has changed. But that is how it is. So today I want to actually look at another one of the recent game. It's another one of those wonderful games that first I have to do the backstory on. That okay, so this is another. If you're keeping up with tabletop gaming, if you're tapped into that community, you're probably aware of that. You'd probably be aware of the background for this, but I'm gonna for those of you who aren't. So yeah, a couple years ago, I want to say, oh geez, this would have been like 2020, late 2022, I think, 2023. Sometime around when there's another one of those Wizards of the Coast tried to mess with the Open Games license, and thus a bunch of companies decided, you know what, we're gonna do our own thing instead. So bye. In this case, it's MCDM, the company that Matt Colville started, I guess. And the game is Draw Steel, as in draw your whatever. You'll see. Um, so this one, while it has gotten some attention, I will admit part of this is inspired by a another tabletop gaming dungeon D&D YouTuber, who I wish I could remember their channel name, but they talk about like news and events and that stuff, current events in this space, and what scandals and some scandals, and just generally, hey, what's going on, what's the news, what's up currently. And in this case, it was kind of talking about uh, Matt Colville, MCDM, this particular game. And something they did mention was that, unlike, Daggerheart, which is another game from Critical Role / Darrington Press, another group of people, content creators, streamer, whatever type of people who kind of got big on YouTube / Twitch by creating content for D&D content. It's another group who they also put out their own game, and that got when that came out, that garnered a lot of attention. A lot of people were talking about it all at the same time. And Draw Steel admittedly only came out about a month ago, I think. Like literally like the end of July, I think, is when they finally released the sent out the final PDFs to all the people who backed the Kickstarter, which includes me. But it admittedly does not and seemingly hasn't quite garnered as much attention, though I have seen some stuff about it. So it's not like nobody knows about this. But I will say, the idea that, yeah, it kind of is. Admittedly, they're not necessarily trying to get the huge audience. They decided, okay, we know our audience. We know who wants to play this, and we want to appeal to those people. We don't want to try to appeal to everybody and try to get as many people as possible. So we're maybe a little more okay with being a little more niche. And yeah, that's okay. But we're going to take a look at it anyway. Right? Because, maybe people seeing this, and I will admit, maybe people seeing it, maybe if you look at it, see what the books look like you'll go like, okay, that looks kind of cool. Well, and fun. And maybe pick up the rules in the game books. And I will admit the price tag is a little higher than I would probably like, but, it's not... It's certainly no worse than, Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast can almost certainly afford to charge less. So, anyway. First up, I'm going to queue up. Well, actually, first up, let's switch over to the PDF, and I'm going to click on get some music going. I hope that's not too crazy loud that I'm not being drowned out. Okay. Oops. Okay. Actually, I think I'm going to turn it down a bit more. All right. So, starting off, okay, so this is the hero book, which, okay, there's a big description of stuff. And I'm going to acknowledge, I like this art. I think at least the cover is very nice, very cool. And, if you know or have been following MCDM or Matt Colville for a while now, you'll almost certainly recognize this scene because they kind of streamed this back when they were doing live streams of their D&D game. But anyway, well, I guess, yeah. So yeah, love this piece of art. I will admit later on some of the art is a little less, it's good, but it's not so dynamic, I guess. Anyway, but this is the heroes book, so this is the book for the players. So, moving on. Right, here's lovely, wonderful credit. It's for all the people who actually worked on the game, and a very large list of playtesters, which again is one of those. Yeah, there are a lot of playtesting going on, and comments from the lead game designer James Introcaso. There's a slight complaint I have about this, and admittedly, it might just be with this version of the PDF, but yeah, none of the links for the table of contents actually go anywhere. Not sure what's up with that. That they don't click anywhere, have to go to the chapters, which at least, at the very least, there is it is properly bookmarked, so that's good. Another nice bit of art, which it's certainly interesting and kind of cool, but all right. And admittedly, yeah, they do open up with an explanation of like, okay, here's, if you're, and even saying like, okay, our game isn't necessarily for everybody. If this is the kind of game you want to, if you want to play something that's different, here, like if, hey, if you're interested in going into dungeons and killing monsters and that's all you want to do maybe try out Shadow Dark instead. instead, because this game, while you can do that, that's not the focus of the game. If you want to do, it's like, hey, if you like going through the wilderness and exploration and that sort of thing and fighting monsters in the wilderness, you can do that in this game, but that's not what it's really about. If you want to do that, maybe try Forbidden Lands. If you want to do horror, maybe check out Call of Cthulhu. If you want something that's, more focused on comedy, try Paranoia. So, but ultimately, we're going. I think there are. What are the words they use? So yeah, they do use a couple terms to lay out what they want to do, what this game is supposed to be. Yeah, okay, so we've got 4 terms they want to use. And oh wow. Is this... Wow, this is just very low. Now let's see if the... Okay. I can maybe turn off the music now. Audio now. Okay, cool. Alright. So there's 4... Yeah, we got 4 terms they use to describe the game. Chart is tactical, heroic, cinematic, and fantasy. So yeah, we've got description of all of these. Okay, so tactical... Yeah, that might be the biggest hurdle for a lot of people. This is a game where, positioning and movement and working together and all that stuff are kind of important. So, you can't just zone out. You can't, if you get into combat, and this is not a game where when you get into combat, you can just zone out until it's your turn and then do your thing and then go back to zoning out. You maybe kind of do want to pay attention to what's happening. And again, positioning, movement, there are abilities and things that potentially will maybe cause you to move, or can cause other things to move. So this unfortunately is one of those games where, yeah, you do kind of need the map. You do kind of need a map. Sorry. Yeah. Heroic. Yeah, it's... the idea, at least, is that sort of going in, the buy-in is like, you are the heroes. You are heroes, you are doing heroic things. You're not doing this you're not just going out and doing stuff for money, you're doing it because your characters are heroes. You should maybe be, doing that, and yeah. We're not necessarily interested in the nitty-gritty of things. We're not interested in, like, tracking resources. We're not interested in not interested in, like, okay, how much ammo do you have? How many rations do you have? What's the weight of all this equipment you're carrying? All that stuff. That's not important. That's not interesting. That's not fun. That's not heroic. Cinematic is... Yeah, we want you to be able to do cool stuff. I guess it's... everything should seem cool. Every ability you have should sound cool. Every ability you use should look cool. You are the heroes, and admittedly the bad guys. All of this should be really cool and exciting. It should be really fun and interesting and amazing. Yes. And finally, fantasy. It's a fantasy game. Admittedly, this is... There are elements of this that get a little more weird. Like, the kind of weird that you generally don't see in, like, modern tabletop fantasy games, but was, like, maybe kind of there in the early edition. iterations. I'm talking about like what was that module? I don't know. I do remember there was some module where you literally go onto a crashed alien spaceship, and this was like first edition D&D. But you know, and I know that, and I think like Greyhawk, yeah, there's also spaceships and lasers and stuff that occasionally appear in Greyhawk as well, or what, that kind of stuff. So there is some weird kind of sci-fi-y elements if you go with the base setting and the rules as presented here, but you know, it is mostly fantasy and magic and stuff like that. Getting into some of the little tweaks and differences. Honestly, I don't remember. I'll admit this is generally the chapter I'm skipping. So again, changes from like D20, you know, D&D and that sort of the different character option and smaller bonuses and penalties are a lot smaller, but then yeah, and here is a map, I'm assuming, of yeah, it's another one of those Matt Colville's private fantasy setting that he made up, and thus, and kind of, you know, when they were making the game, they decided, sure, we'll use this as sort of the default setting. It's, okay, you know, just a bunch of little things that if you're not interested in what differentiates this from standard D&D and whatnot. But moving on. I find it interesting that they decided to include a glossary at the front of the book. Like, this isn't even chapter 1. This is like the introductory area. Yeah. And admittedly, you don't need to read any of this stuff. You really don't. But also, it is interesting that they decided to put this at the front of the book rather than at the back, because the only other instance of this that I'm aware of was like the very first edition of Dune, you know, not the Frank Herbert novel. And that kind of didn't go over quite so well, because it is weird to put this stuff at the beginning of the book. But, you know, it has to go somewhere. So I guess explaining terms up front is not terrible. All right. So again, another piece of art. This is all right, I suppose. It's evocative of what you're going to be experiencing. All right. So we're going to just jump into the basics of how the game works. All right. All right. So I have characteristics, which in other games are ability scores or what attributes, whatever. Here they're characteristics, and characters have 5 of them instead of like 6, and we'll get into why. So we have might, agility, reason, intuition, and presence, and I like these. If you're coming to this from D&D, you can kind of see how these map to the 6 ability scores there, and you're probably wondering, wait a minute, where's Constitution? There's no equivalent to this. Might is obviously strength. Agility is dexterity. Reason is intelligence. Intuition is wisdom. Presence is charisma. Where is Constitution? And we'll get to that. It is one of those little changes. You're generally not using that sort of thing, so don't worry about it. All right. So, first big difference is that, you're using. There's like two-ish kinds of dice you're going to be using. D3s, which, you know, is basically D6 halved, and potentially percentiles, or more likely just 2d10s. So, you know, when you roll, instead of doing the d20, and I actually did sort of see when they talked about, when Matt Colville was talking about the design of this, part of what they did, I believe, what they did with the, for power rolls. Power roll is basically, you know, anytime you want to try and do a thing to see how well you do, you roll, you know, it's either an ability roll or a test, and you're rolling 2d10s. And I think I believe the logic was like, okay, if we do 2d10, you know, if we're rolling 2 dice and adding them together, that takes this flat line of probabilities, because, you know, if you're rolling a d20, the odds of getting any particular number are always 1 in 20. You know, getting any particular results, whether anything from a 1 to a 20, you always have a 5% chance of getting any result. But if you do 2 dice, suddenly we have a probability curve. And we can go, okay, what's the most likely results? And what is the least likely result? And that gets us into the outcomes, because power roll outcomes and the tier of the result. Because, you know, there's like 3 levels of results, and usually I think, yeah, it's always power roll. You roll your 2d10s and add some modifier, add a characteristic. So tier 1 is if you roll an 11 or lower, if the total including your characteristic is an 11 or lower, that is the lowest possible outcome, whatever that might be. Tier 2 is 12 to 16. That's better, not the best, but you're doing more. And tier 3 is the best option, which is 17 or higher. So, you know, there's specific options and specific things that will tweak that, but, you know, that's generally how it is. And, you know, and this kind of goes for everything. Whatever the result is, you can very, very quickly do the math. Okay, what did you get? Okay, you rolled and got a 14. Okay, that's a tier 2. Here's the result. Here's what you get from that. Okay, you rolled and you got a 9. Oh, well, that's a tier 1 result. Okay. Boom. Those are the numbers you're looking at. That's it. Let's see. If I roll, let's see. I do believe, yeah. Natural roll. That's what happens. Okay, so you get a 19 or a 20. He naturally, with that's before you add any modifiers or anything. If your 2d10 roll gets a 20 or 19 or a 20, that is a critical. And what does that do? Well, that's going to depend. Now, right. Edges and banes, that's the little bonuses and penalties you can get from circumstantial stuff. An edge is, you know, some benefit to this, so... Oh... Okay. Just a regular edge gives you a +2. I feel like there was a version of this where an edge was giving you a d6, but I'm not sure. That may have been, that was almost certainly an earlier edition of this that I saw some people playing around with. But anyway, regular A single edge gives you a +2, and if you have 2 edges, that's called a double edge, which bumps you up to the next tier. So if you have a double edge, the lowest possible tier you can get, whatever you roll, you will at least get a tier 2 result. Conversely, we have Banes. That's the opposite. It's a penalty. Your penalty, regular Bane, subtracts 2 from the result. If you have multiple Banes, if you have 2 or more Banes, it's a double Bane, and that lowers your result 1 tier. So the maximum you can get is a tier 2 result, no matter what you roll. Let me see. And they do cancel each other out sort of on a 1-to-1 basis, because you can only ever have single or double. So even if you have like 4 edges and 1 Bane, that's still only going to give you 1 edge. So you can only, it's either you have single or double, and that's it. And we got more of this hero tokens. That's something I didn't check into much, but I've kind of been seeing it. Yeah, so that's group resource, very nice. You can use it to do stuff like surges that let you do things and things. Potency, that's a mechanic we'll maybe get into later. Fail a save. This will let you spending a surge will spending a hero token lets you succeed. Re-roll a test or spend 2 to regain stamina, which is their version of health, but we'll get into that. And yeah, just a bunch of other stuff. Oh my gosh. All right, getting into some okay, here's actual gameplay mechanic stuff. All right, so victories, every time you overcome a challenge, whatever that might be, maybe it's fighting monsters, get through some encounter, talk your way past these people, whatever that is, that's a victory. And we kind of get in, and the more victories you have as you go through, the more victories you have going into a thing. Okay, sorry. Victories sort of every class has a special heroic resource that they use to power their really cool special abilities and stuff. And the number of victories you have going in before this sets how many you start with. So if you fought your way through 2 combats and you get to a puzzle trap room, whatever, or something to that effect, you start with 2 of whatever your heroic resource is. That's really cool. Well, you want to start, but the other side of this is, you take a respite, which is basically, okay, because victories, this is sort of, your momentum going forward, your adrenaline, whatever you want to call it. And when you take a respite, which is like a long rest, it's actually, they kind of refer to say, it's like, okay, no, this is like you're taking a whole day. You spend like a whole 24 hours resting and healing up and whatnot. Okay. Your victories reset on that. But they get converted into experience, which then helps you advance. So, there is kind of this balancing act of, okay, do you press on? Because now you're really getting into to it, and you'll be able to come into this next fight and just go really big, really early? Or do you stop, rest up, regain recoveries, which are what you use to heal, and, you know, just all that stuff, because it's a balancing act. And okay, we have, I believe it only goes up to 10th level, so it's like, okay, sure, here echelons, I guess this is, excuse me, you know, what can you be what type of stuff are you expected to deal with, you know, that kind of thing. And again, and here is sort of the map of the fictional setting, sort of, you know, the multiverse of Matt Colville's gaming, you know, which he refers to as the Timescape. And you can kind of see, like, wait, there's like spaceships and whatnot in here. What the heck? So, yeah. And we're getting kind of into the setting and details about that. We're going to skip ahead. But yeah, you could... Yeah, what the heck? There's... Uh-huh. Alright. And, alright, this art is maybe looking a little more clunky, but it's a little awkward, kind of, but, you know, it's... Yeah, it's okay. Alright. So, let's see, how long we've been going? Alright, we've been going for like half an hour, alright. So, I'll get into, alright, making a hero. Here's the good stuff. Alright, and... yes. Step 1, think. Whatever. Alright. So they want you to start with an ancestry, which I'm not I always kind of question that. I kind of question that decision, especially after, you know, since I kind of moved over to Tales of the Valiant as my D20 game of choice. Mostly because I feel like, you know, the main defining trait for characters in this does, I think, kind of tend to be your class. But, you know, ancestry, sure, you want to start with that. Okay. Okay, we have a culture, which is, you know, where'd you grow up? Maybe there's some thoughts about... You know, maybe that has something connected to your ancestry, or you can just, you know, build your own. You have a career, which, you know, what did you do before becoming a hero? Going off and becoming a hero. Oh, and, you know, again, all these this and culture provide you with some, you know, skills and whatnot that will have to click that, select, whatever. Obviously, then you get your class, which determines a lot of stuff. A lot of basic stuff for you. Kit, which is what's your gear. Get your free. Obviously, keep track of your thing. It's called free strikes, which is basically your basic weapon attack. Into that, and yeah, you can kind of see with the tiered results here. So you know, like, okay. Whatever your melee weapon is, whatever you happen to decide that is, okay, here's your free strike. So, alright. You roll your 2d10s and add either your might or your agility. You get an 11 or less, that's 2 plus either your might or agility. That's how much damage you deal with that attack. You roll a 12 to 16, it's 5 plus either might or agility. And a 17 plus, again, it's 7 plus might or agility. Easy. Similar with ranged. I believe your kit can tweak some of these potentially tweak some of these numbers, but, you know, that comes later. I do kind of like the idea, the complications. You know, they do want you to include, like, okay, what's something weird and crazy that happened in your backstory? Maybe motivation. What's, you know, obviously you didn't just decide to become a hero for no reason. You lived a life. Things happened. Need those connections, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and yeah, okay, advancements. You know, we've already kind of talked about this with converting victories into experience. I do kind of prefer using milestone advancement just because then it's like, okay, just in general, because then it's less bookkeeping, it's less, it's, you know, advance the story. You know, you advance when the story when it makes sense, rather than like, okay, or you advance when it makes sense from a storytelling perspective, as opposed to advancing because you killed enough monsters or did enough things. I don't know. I do kind of appreciate that. Yeah, we do include options if you want to make it really either advance very more quickly, or you want to stretch this game out and make it, I don't know, call that the gritty advancement track. Ugh. And I actually believe this is the copy or the cover art from Strongholds and Followers, which, you know, it's nice, it's evocative. I do like this bit of art. I think it makes all the ancestry options look kind of cool. Right, obviously, ancestries, sure. I like that they include some potential name suggestions for different ancestries, as well as, yeah, sure, general height and weight, size, that sort of thing, etc., etc. All right. So, first up, and we decided to kind of go alphabetically. You know, but every ancestry, okay. Okay, so we start with, okay, devils, and these are actual devils, not like tieflings or whatever. It's like, no, not like, oh well, your great grandfather, whatever, was a devil. No, you're a straight up devil. Maybe you actually are from hell, or maybe you aren't. Maybe you just kind of, your parents were, or your grandparents. Maybe some of that's there. Maybe some not. But anyway, so we'll start with looking at devils. But yeah, every ancestry gets your signature trait, which does something for you, whatever it may be, and then you get 3 ancestry points, which you can then spend on you know, a variety of options. Usually there's a bunch of like 1 or 2 point things. Some of them, they all do different stuff. Like, you can obviously see, like, yeah, there's a lot of number of 2 point options, but, you know, barbed tail, sure, you can, that lets you, you know, once per round you make an attack. You can also deal some extra damage. Easy. Beast legs, you have you're slightly faster. I think your base speed is 5 and now it's 6. A prehensile tail. Your tail is not... You have a tail. So this basically means you can't be flanked for all the good that it is. Or hey, you have wings, so you can fly for, you know, whatever your might score is, or that many rounds, at least one, before, you know, falling down. Okay. And, you know, okay, Dragon Knight, because Matt Colville, again, decided, okay, sure, we'll have Dragonkin, but not quite. Dwarves, I think the art for the dwarves is interesting. The design decision to go like, okay, they're not just short, muscly guys. They're actually kind of stone. Hello. Hello. Thanks for popping it in. Looking at draw steel, kind of just getting into some of the ancestry options. All right. So, I'm doing all right. How are you doing? All right. Right, so, okay, we got the first of the elves, which are not in alphabetical order, but Matt Colville wrote the fiction in the wrong order, so whatever. And woad elves instead of wood elves, because Matt Colville likes to use the word woad instead. And I think it's I do kind of find the design interesting, because, you know, the large... yeah, draw steel. It's from MCDM Productions. Actually, you know what the heck? Let me drop in the link to the shop, assuming it'll all load. Why load there? All right. Drop the link to the shop. Can find it there. I'll admit it is a bit on the somewhat more pricey side, although you can get you can actually buy the starter adventure from them. It's also on Drive-Thru RPG, but you know what, either works. However you want to get it. You can get the starter adventure, which includes like the basic rules and a pretty decently done adventure, or that will cover, you know, a good chunk of time and a good chunk of content. You can currently pick that up, the digital version of that up, for like $10. So, you know, worth looking at, worth maybe trying out if you're on the fence. All right, so getting back to it. All right, yeah. So wood elves, these are the wood elves, basically. Then we have the high elves, who look, yeah, they're noticeably different. Different, though arguably, because elves in this setting this game are kind of, they have a natural sort of magical glamour. For the woad elves, it's, you know, stealth. It makes them more stealthy, but for the high elves, it basically is, yeah, people are more attracted to you. They find you more appealing. You're more convincing, what have you. Now we're kind of getting into some of the more interesting one. The Hakan, which are Goliath half giants, that sort of thing. But also they potentially have this, this thing called Doom Sight, which is like, okay, in some way that you know when and where you will die. And you can decide with the director, which is their term for the GM, for the person running the game, like, okay, is this the fight where I die? And if you both agree, if you say sure, if you both say yes, this is the fight where you're gonna die, then like you do better, you're harder, it's a whole thing. It's a weird thing. I don't know. It sounds really kind of cool, but also like, wow. Humans. We have to have humans. Memenek. Again, this is one of the weird ones, because this is getting into the more extraplanar stuff, because, you can kind of see they're like weirdly mechanical and have sci-fi looking stuff. It's crazy. But yeah, they're supposed to be like from the plane of law. So like they're kind of mechanical, kind of yeah. It's crazy. Orcs, which, do look pretty metal. I do like that, they're not just green people. They're not just humans that are green, but they're also not like these slobbering ape kind of looking things with big teeth. Polder, because we can't have halflings, but we gotta kind of have the short, small, sneaky people. And even their special signature ability is literally just turning into a shadow. An actual two-dimensional shadow is crazy. It's weird. Revenant, because sure, why not let you play a walking corpse? That's cool. And yeah, oh, hello. Oh, what is this? Got one of those. All right, fine. Begone, bot. You are not welcome here. Okay. And now the Time Raiders, which are just the weirdest thing in this whole yeah. Like you thought the Memeneks were weird. These guys are just aliens. They're aliens from another plane of existence. That they are the MCDM. They're kind of the MCDM version of the Gith. It's they got psychic powers and stuff. Just kind of by default, they can they've got 4 arms, so you can potentially do extra stuff because like. You have an extra pair of arms. And the design, they're like these weird 80s punk rock shit. It's crazy. But yeah, look at this. Look at it. Okay. What the heck? All right. Okay, so, all right, background. So, all right, getting into background and stuff. So yeah, we have so there's a lot of factors that go into a cult. Like there's two parts to this, which I believe are your, what is it? Let's see, what is it? Yeah, culture and career. All right, and I do kind of like that. Okay. So obviously we have typical ancestry cultures, which is okay. Various languages you might speak by default. How did it, So there's three factors that kind of go into your culture, which are environment, organization, and upbringing. But we have the typical ones for various ancestries, but also if maybe you want to go for something a little more different from that, like you want to play a human, but maybe you didn't want to grow up in like a city and be someone who worked for a living. Maybe maybe you want to be from a farming village where it's like, so instead you're growing up in a rural area, or you're shepherds and you herd animals across vast plains and whatnot. Or you grew up in a traveling mercenary band or whatever. It's but so, and each of these, and there's and you can obviously customize this to however you want. Mostly it boils down to a couple of things. So like again, environment, organization, and upbringing, and each of these different options basically says, all right, obviously basic description of whatever but more importantly for filling out making a character is, all right, you get a skill from one group, from this group. You get to pick a skill from one of these two groups. So like, you got nomadic, you get an exploration skill or an interpersonal skill. Urban, you get, potentially an interpersonal skill or an intrigue skill. You grew up in the wilderness. Okay, you get a crafting or exploration skill. It's that kind of thing. And again, same with organization. It's okay, pick a skill from one of these two groups. Upbringing gets a little more restricted, gets a little more interesting, because like, okay, you see like academic, okay, you get to pick a lore skill. Creative, you either get music or perform or a craft skill. Labor, you either get blacksmithing, handle animals, or some exploration skill. That sort of thing. We have the default languages of the setting, which in case you're interested in that sort of thing, I kind of appreciate that there's multiple regions in the human dominated area, and each of these regions has its own language. That's kind of cool. Again, and then languages by ancestry. Okay. These people, orcs tend to speak this language. Dwarves tend to speak this language. That kind of thing. And we include dead languages too, just in case. Maybe it'll come in handy. Okay. And careers are. Yeah, again, you get a couple of things from careers. Again, you get to pick a couple of skills. You might learn an extra language, because I believe each culture you start out knowing a language. Yeah, so you make whatever language or of wherever you grew up. Careers, again, picking some skills, probably getting another language or two. You might start with some renown, which it does things for roleplay or whatnot. You might start with some wealth, which, again, letting you get stuff. You might have a certain number of project points, which you can put into doing stuff during your downtime, which is a thing to do during a respite. And then perks, which I really have not looked into at all, because it's like, okay, that's just blah. And of course, we have the inciting incident, which is like, okay, what happened specifically to land you here doing this? Being a hero, killing monsters, all of that. What happened? What did that? And there's a bunch of different options, as you can see. Farmer, gladiator, laborer. Yeah, I'm not going to go through all of these. There's, some of them look more interesting than others. Anyway, blah. Okay, and now we finally get to the meat of all of this, which is the classes. Okay. There's a bunch of classes, and I'm gonna try and get through these in the next half hour or so. Okay. All right. So deciding your class gives you, does set your, actually, okay. So okay. Here are the different classes. We have the Censor, which is kind of a paladin. The Conduit, which is more of a priest cleric, channeling the, you are also a devoted servant of some divine being, but, you are channeling that divine energy. Elementalist, which, you are controlling the various elements of the world. You are doing magic. You are a wizard, basically. Fury is, it's D&D barbarian. Sorry, it's right. You get angry and then you hit things. The Null, which is an interesting name for what it is, but it's basically right. You are a monk. You are the unarmed fighter. You are you are more dangerous. You are far more dangerous without weapons than some people might be with them. Shadow, you are a sneaky rogue, tactician. You are a fighter. This is the standard approach rather of how to make the fighter more interesting, which is make them sort of a battlefield strategist. talent is honestly the this is more of the another this is another MCDM specific thing, because they released the talent for 5e as well, and the talent is basically how they incorporate. Here's our way of incorporating psychic powers and all that stuff into a system. So while the elementalist is using arcane magic and the conduit is channeling divine energy, the talent is using their brain and psionic powers. And then we have the troubadour, which is like, you know, bard. Because, you know, every game needs a bard of some sort, right? Someone whose job is mostly to sing and be witty and do all that stuff. Alright, so yeah, each class also, you know, you pick a subclass, you get to choose. I think you pick a subclass right away, which probably a good idea, just so that even if you have people ostensibly playing the same class, this way they maybe feel a little different. We are differentiating them. Get various different abilities and such from different classes. Yeah. And so on. And again, every class has a heroic resource, and they all start at different things. And some of these are admittedly kind of very evocative. Since, you know, censors have wrath, elementalists have essence, and tacticians have focus, and troubadours, of course, have drama. It's great. And, you have certain signature abilities, which are just, you know, this is what, if you have nothing else to do, you can do this. Just do this if you have no idea what you want to do. And various keywords for various abilities that I'm not going to get into right now, and, you know, how to read your various abilities and such. And again, so, you know, something else, comment when I was from the review discussion, whatever, that inspired this, is that, you know, this game is very readable. The rule book here is, again, very readable. So, hey, wow, here's a simple idea. Okay, here we have a tactician. They have an ability that has an aura of 1, which means everything within 1 square. Here's burst. Okay, burst 1. Burst 1. 1 around this person. Burst 2. Everything within 2 squares of the character. We are in a universe where circles do not exist. It's all done in squares. Yeah. Cubes. Lines. Lines are straight lines. They do not curve. They do not, you know, can't go around stuff. Okay, this is an okay line. This is a good line. This is a good line. You can't, yeah. And yeah. Walls. Okay, cool. Targets, ability roll, etc. Base damage plus characteristic, etc., etc. Okay. We have surges that have once again popped back up. Okay. Different thing. Sure. When you gain surges, yeah, I don't know where they talk about gaining. All right. Potency. Right. Okay. So yeah, there are certain abilities that say, like, okay, potency, which is, you weak, average, and strong. And it's basically, okay, if the target's characteristic, might, agility, reason, etc., is based on the tier. It's like, okay, if they have this characteristic that is under whatever your potency value is, which, usually whatever, your weak potency is equal to a particular characteristic -2, average is -1, strong is your highest characteristic. It'll probably tell you. So yeah, we've got Conduit that has an ability potentially called Judgment's Hammer, which, you roll power roll, so that's 2d10 plus your intuition. You roll, you do this many do 3, 6, or 9 plus your intuition and holy damage, and if the target's agility is less than your weak potency, then they fall prone. If you roll a 17 or higher, you do 9 plus intuition holy damage, and if their agility is less than your strong potency, they fall prone and can't stand until they make a save. And again, it is based on I think a lot for at least starting at first level. I think your whatever ability or whatever characteristic, your characteristic, whatever your characteristic is used to determine your potency, is gonna be a 2. So in this case, Conduit has an intuition of 2, so that means their weak potency is 0, average is 1, and strong is 2. So doing the math, you can see the math all done down here. Okay. There's just a lot of this stuff. Okay. We're gonna just move on. All right. Okay. Sensor, very nice, very paladin. Very paladin. Again, both might and presence. You're using presence for your potency. And you have a starting base stamina of 21. You gain 9 per level, and so on and so on. Your special heroic resource is Wrath, and in this case, I believe, so they just gain 2 Wrath every round. After the start of your turn, you gain 2 Wrath just instantly, every time. Etc. They have again, and art layout maybe not super interesting, but again, it's very readable. And you can see first level, you get you maybe, in this case, right, you pick a domain, you pick your order, which is your subclass. That gives you, in this case, gives you a skill. I believe you start with the abilities Judgment and My Life for Yours. The My Life for Yours is well, it's healing. It's a healing thing. And yeah, there's a yeah. All right. Get a signature ability, which again is just something other than just hit with weapon. And, you know, this is just something you can do anytime, any round for free. You get heroic abilities. For heroic abilities, you have your 3 wrath abilities. Then you have your bigger 5 wrath abilities, and you know, and every class kind of has this. We'll skip ahead. So you know, the conduit. Conduit has intuition, and instead of as their big one main ability instead of might or presence. Blah 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 blah. They also get domains and stuff. But their heroic resource is piety, and they gain D3 piety every on their turn. And again, oof, yeah. It's a lot, but again, it's so this is why I'm so you can kind of get the feeling going through this, you kind of see that a lot of this is definitely inspired by 4th edition, which Matt Colville is a fan of. He is given at least some praise for 4th edition, and where, you know, every class is unique and different and works differently and does different. There are basic mechanical similarities, but also there are distinct differences between classes. There's not, you know, like we're looking at the Fury. Okay, the Fury is not like the Fighter. The Fury is not like the Null, which in turn is not like the Shadow, which is not like the Tactician. Like, even like the Fury and the Tactician, which are ostensibly, okay, we are both, you know, combat focused. These are both combat focused classes. They work very differently. They do very different things. You know, the Talent and the Elementalist are very different. Even though yeah, they both use reason as their primary character, their main characteristic. They both are more or less spellcasters of some sort, though the talents, flavor-wise, are very different from those of the Elementalist. You know, and even as everything is, and again, another one of those 4th edition things. It's like, okay, right here, sorry, that is not the tool I want. Why is, you know, okay, here's everything you need to know about. Like, you look at this ability, it's like, okay, sure, there's a little bit of flavor text. Here's basically, here we have everything you need to know about mechanically. What, like, okay, what are some of the key words? What type of action? What does this take up? What's the area about it? And who does it affect? Boom, here's what it actually mechanically does. Here's the roll you need to make and what it does. Depending on the result. It's very simple, very straightforward. And Troubadour, last but not least, of course. And yeah, we're like almost halfway through this, and okay, real quick, I think we can get through kits. I'm not particularly interested in digging into some of this other stuff until maybe next time, maybe next week if I feel up to it. But okay, so yeah, kit is your gear, it's your equipment, it's all of that. And you know, instead of having to track individual pieces of equipment, it's like, no, you just, it's all flavor. And there's maybe some distinctions, but like, you know, okay, sure, there's light, medium, and heavy armor, but we're not going to tell you what that means. Like, okay, maybe your light armor is like just a padded, a thick jacket. Maybe it's a chain shirt. Maybe your heavy armor is this big, heavy suit of ring mail, or like plate armor, whatever. For maybe, you know, your light weapon could be a dagger, it could be a rapier, it could be a hand axe, or something like that. Medium weapon, same with medium weapons, same with heavy weapons. It's not overly specific, because that's not part of the fantasy. That's not heroic, you know. Okay, and you know, different kits give you different bonuses and penalties to things. They all, you know, like, you know, they will alter your stamina. They might change your speed. They might give you stability bonus, which is, you know, your ability to resist being moved by an enemy attack. They will potentially give you bonuses to certain types of damage, like either melee or ranged. They might give you bonus damage on certain results. I think we'll probably get an example in a bit. You know, yeah. So yeah, bonus damage across tiers. Some, you know, it's like, okay, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 results. So like, okay, we have the shining armor kit, just gives you a flat +2 to all melee damage across your tiers. The sniper kit does nothing for a tier 1 or 2 result, but gives you a +4 on a tier 3, +4 damage on a tier 3 result. So that's like, so, you know, it kind of makes sense. And again, these are all fairly simple, and again, they all come with a signature ability, which is, you know, the base attack. So yeah, Arcane Archer. You're not wearing any armor, but you've got a bow. Oh, so you're a little faster, you deal more range damage across the board, you have a have a longer range and are better at just disengaging. And your signature ability is Exploding Arrow. And the thing with kits is there's no restriction on what classes can use which kits. You know, if you want to be like, you know, if you're playing an elementalist, you can totally, you know, the wizard, you can absolutely take the shining armor kit and have this heavy armor and shield and a sword, while still being basically a wizard. There's nothing saying, there's no rule against that. If you can be, that's not where I want to be. You know, you can be a fury, you can do the fury, which is, you know, big berserker type, and, you know, but take the martial art this thing and say, you know what? No, I don't want to have any armor. I don't want to have any weapons. I just want to use my bare hands. Which, because there's also like a weird animal shifting sort of option, subclass option for the Fury, so that might be a little more literal. You know, you got all these crazy options, and you can switch out of these on a respite, on, you know, a long 24-hour rest. You can switch out your kit, because why not? There's no problem with that. Or, you know, hey, you can totally go with, like, you know, if you're an elementalist or a conduit, or, you know, you want to go with classic, you know, yeah, I have a staff and I wear robes, and that's okay. Hey. Yeah, hey. And hey, yeah, we have sword and board, which is not quite as heavy armor, but, you know, it's medium armor, so that's not nothing. Yep. And yeah, we got nice table of, okay, here's all the kits and here's what it does. Like, here's the armor for each of these, here's the weapon type, here's bonus stamina, bonus to stamina, bonus speed, bonus if any, stability bonus if any, melee damage bonus, bonuses, range damage bonuses, any increased distance, because we have the Guizarmir, who uses a pole arm, so their melee attacks get an extra, go a little further. Same with the Rotarius, which I'm sure is Latin, but I don't. And, you know, stick and robe, as well as the Whirlwind, who uses a whip. You know, and range distance for the more ranged attack kit, focus kits, and bonus to disengage if that comes up. And yeah, this art is a little less. I can see what they were going for. It's kind of interesting, but also like, right. And I'm not going to get into perks and stuff, so, because it's about 5 o'clock. I've been going for about an hour and a half. So, I'm just going to pop back here and turn off my music. Alright. So, yeah, that's Draw Steel. I don't think I'm going to go through the rest of the hero book. I'm probably not going to go through the monster book. There's not a whole lot to learn about the monster book. There's some interesting stuff about design, encounter strength, and different types of monsters and whatnot, but honestly, yeah, I think I might try huh. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I'll probably maybe try and do a little combat to kind of show it all the bits and pieces coming together, but we'll see, because, you know, okay. Okay, we can hear me. All right, just double checking because I didn't have it rolled up this time. I will maybe try and do a combat thing. I don't know. Oh, because showing off, as mentioned, like, every class has their own heroic resource. There's a lot of bits and pieces going on, and while it's not certainly not bad, it is definitely one of those things that kind of makes me personally go like, okay, can I keep all this straight? Can I do all this in a fairly quick, effective way? And I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna certainly try and put some stuff together because this coming weekend is nice long Labor Day weekend. So maybe we'll see. Anyway, other than that, I hope you've enjoyed. I'm do reminder, I'm Librarian Writer Geek on Twitch and YouTube. This will be up on YouTube in a couple of days if you want to see the whole thing. I'm also on Blue Sky if you want to follow me there. Otherwise, here's my website. You can find links to all of this stuff as well as some other things I've put out and worked on. Yeah. And other than that, have a good one. Have a nice day. Rest of your day. Bye.